This time, we will look at Newton's second law of motion, and this is commonly known as the law of acceleration. The law of acceleration states that in an inertial frame of reference, the vector sum of the forces on an object is equal to the mass of that object multiplied by the acceleration of the object. So mathematically, we express the law of acceleration in this equation. The net force is equal to the mass of the object times the acceleration of the object. Using Newton's second law, we can actually derive yung first law. Makikita natin yung first law in Newton's second law. Now, if you set A, or the acceleration, to be 0, and then the net force of the object is equal to the mass of the object times the acceleration of the object, we can see that the net force on the object is 0. Now, this here is our Newton's first law. So we can see here that Newton's first law follows from Newton's second law. Now, dito sa ating mathematical equation for the Newton's second law, we can actually see two implications ng equation na ito. The first implication is our net force is directly proportional to the acceleration, which means na the more we increase the net force that is acting on the object, lalaki din yung value ng acceleration of the object. So katulad kanina, we've seen in the Newton's first law, if we apply no force in this box, we expect that the acceleration is also 0. Now, if we take the same box, and this time we apply a net force on the box, then we can expect a value for acceleration. Our box will now accelerate in the same direction kung saan nakatutok yung ating net force. Now, we take the same box, and this time, we apply a greater force, mas malakas na net force doon sa ating box, then we can expect greater acceleration doon sa box. So, we expect na mas mabilis yung pag-accelerate niya on the same direction kung saan nakatutok yung ating net force. So, yun yung first implication na we can see from this equation. Now, the second implication here is that the acceleration ng ating object is inversely proportional sa mass ng object. So, say you have a box with a mass m, and then we apply a net force doon sa box. Katulad kanina, we expect an acceleration doon sa ating box dahil may net force that is applied to it. Now, take the same net force and apply this to a much more massive box, mas mabigat na box. Now, we see here, dahil mas mabigat yung object, even though we apply the same net force, we will see a decrease in the acceleration of the object. Dahil mas mabigat yung object na ito from the previous one. Now, take again the same net force and apply this to a much more massive box. So, this time, we expect the acceleration of the box to be much less. Okay? Increasing the mass of the object and applying the same net force to these different masses, we expect na liliit at liliit yung acceleration ng object dahil in-apply natin yung same net force to a much more massive box. So, yun yung makita natin na behavior ng objects when we apply net force to it. The more net force we apply, we expect na mas lalaki pa yung acceleration ng object. But if we apply this net force to a much more heavier object, maliit lang din yung ini-expect natin na acceleration. So that is Newton's second law, the law of acceleration. So, how do we apply Newton's second law sa pag-solve natin ng problems in mechanics? So in a way, medyo similar siya in using Newton's first law with a simple modification. This time, if we observe that the acceleration is not 0, nakita natin that the object is accelerating, then that means that the sum of forces along the x-axis, or the x component of our net force, is equal to the mass of the object times the x component nung acceleration na na-observe natin from the object. Now, this is also true for the y-axis. Sum of forces along the y-axis is equal to the mass of the object times the y component nung acceleration. So, ang only difference is instead of sum equal to 0, meron na siyang fixed value, which is mass times the appropriate component ng ating acceleration. So, this is how we will be applying Newton's second law in solving problems in mechanics.